Hey, Egg Teacher Thoughts here, coming at you with another video. Today I was working on something, and as I started working on it, I suddenly realized, I'm like, you know what? I thought this wasn't going to be good content for a video, but then when I got into it, I was like, you know what? I bet other people would enjoy seeing what I'm working with now. So those of you that have followed the channel for a little bit have known that there has been a little buddy fern that has been hanging out with my Venus Flytrap that we have in our experimental water garden that we have here. Experimental in that I know water gardens work, but when you are in an area that has low humidity and high temperatures in the summertime, sometimes it's a question of whether or not something's going to thrive out there. So I decided I was going to remove our little fern buddy, so I got him a little container. Yeah, his peat moss is a little dry, so this container as a whole, we're just soaking it from the bottom, and it'll soak up that water just through that little hole and eventually get all of this peat moss. So that I'm not worried about. But then I was like, you know, I should probably plant up my Venus Flytrap into a larger container for wintertime, give it some more space for its roots. And when I started working on it, I was like, you know, this is pretty old, pretty waterlogged peat moss. And I wasn't finding, you can see there how there's a cone here. I just wasn't finding any roots beyond this little cone. And that was kind of concerning to me. So what I did is I decided I was going to look a little bit further. And I found that they were using this, the little fabric containers that you put around starts, like seedlings or cuttings, and it helps get it established and have a root ball that you can hold on to when you plant it. These are supposed to just naturally decay in the soil over time. However, I've had this Venus Flytrap since last fall, and this is not yet decayed, and the roots just seem to be struggling and getting through it. So what I decided to do is I was going to remove it because I only saw roots coming out the bottom. And when I did, I pulled it back. And let's see if this is in frame. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Venus Flytraps have a bulb-like structure. Isn't that cool? This is below the soil surface. So there's actually the crown of the plant. Oh, yeah, there we go. Make sure. So Venus Flytraps have a bulb-like structure. And there's the crown of the plant right there. And there's where the roots start. And this is where the soil level was. So it was all the way up here. But these leaves, when they come out, are actually pushing a hole through the soil. And they start all the way down here. And they poke up the soil there. So let's dig a little bit further in this. Let's make sure you can see the whole thing. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to save the existing soil. We're going to come in and we're going to just kind of trim this guy up. I'm going to do my best to keep this in frame. We're going to remove all the black, all the spent traps. And we're going to basically get him ready for winter. And you can see that the other two traps, they're closed right now. So this one, see those little two pieces there? Those are the pincers of an earwig. So that's an earwig. And I think this is the one we looked at last time. And I believe there's something in that one. There's nothing in this one, but those two are traps. And that is most definitely an earwig. So I'm going to get all these little traps out of the way. I thought that was the coolest thing, to find out that that is what a Venus Flytrap looks like underground. So we're going to take some risks today. I'm going to get all this plant material out of the way. And we're going to try to kind of break this away. Because if you're curious like me, you're going to want to see the structure. Ooh, there's roots in there. Okay, it's for that weed. So we'll get that weed out of the way. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Look at that. This is all subterranean. So there's the soil level right here. And there's where the bulb comes down. Yeah, look at those. Oh, these roots aren't doing real well. It's not really well rooted, probably because I have it sitting in water. So let's come over here, because there was a second plant over here. I want to see if that one is anything left in that one. I'm going to do just a slow pulling apart. Don't want to damage it, don't want to hurt it. Okay. Yeah, it was a side shoot from the original. Still in frame? Yeah, good. As long as I rest my hands there, you'll be in frame. Look at that. So I can come in here and I can clean up all this dead stuff. We'll just go ahead and do that. Yeah, this is where the second crown was, and it just didn't make it. We have one that made it. Yeah, look at that. Trying to be really careful. Yeah. Almost looks like this is split off and that there are two of them here. Yeah, there are two of them. There's one here and one there. But that is definitely very, very interesting. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get them back in the ground. Hopefully this might come back. Maybe, I don't know. It looks pretty dead. Okay, so we're going to put them back in our new peat moss. And we are going to need to bury it down as deep as the other one was. So this is going to be a little bit of a trick. And pull some of my peat moss out. My peat moss was compressed peat moss. That's been completely dry. So I'm going to just kind of fluff it up as we put it in here. I think I could probably lift these leaves up like that. Yeah, let's shred that up real good. I think we need more soil. Let me go get some. All right. Got some new peat moss. There we go. I'm going to dig a hole. So just like I would plant most of my regular plants. Just put it in like that. And we're going to tuck this peat moss down underneath the leaves because it seems to want that soil for support. But that bulb is now down buried under the soil surface. Yeah, this was a learning experience for me. I had never thought that the root structure was like that. I thought more like dandelion, you know, with the taproot. And I'd read somewhere that they had a lily-like bulb, but I had not imagined it would look like that. There we go. So that is our repot there, and we know we've got two of them now that are growing there. This other potting soil, I think I'm going to just let that, or this peat moss, I'm going to let that just kind of decay in the garden. I think we're going to stick with this new virgin peat moss there. And then what we're going to do, now that we got all the moss out of there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to just set this in this dish of water. And it is going to slowly start taking up water. Now, one of the things to know about peat moss is it is hygroscopic when it's damp. It's hydrophobic when it's dry. So if peat moss is completely dried out, it will take a very long time for water to start getting into the peat moss itself. It might take a half hour or an hour or more. But if there's any sort of moisture in there, it is much more capable of absorbing water. So A lot of times you want to keep your peat moss just a little bit damp, just a little bit of moisture in there, because it will more readily accept water that way, which is why we're going to put this in a container, because it's going to take probably a good hour or more to get water all the way to the top of this pot through osmotic and surface tension. So that's going to take a while. So anyway, that's kind of how it goes with some of my videos. I work on a project and I might get midway through it and suddenly think, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I've got to share that. This was definitely a cool learning thing for me. I learned something on this one. I hadn't known that before, and that's like my video yesterday. I didn't know aphids could be on water lilies, so I learned something new yesterday. So even though I have been in the greenhouse and nursery industry for over 40 years, you know, my entire life, I still learn things pretty regularly, which is kind of fun. It gives kind of meaning to what I do. But anyway, I'm glad I could bring you along for that ride. You know, just so that you know when other opportunities like this arrive, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Watch all the way to the end. There's usually something fun at the end. Just a little hint and tidbit for you on that. But anyway, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Ag Teacher Thoughts out. All right, so this beautiful flower that we have here is called Gara. It is one that came to the United States as a decorative perennial, as a perennial ornamental. It came to the United States in the early 90s. When it first arrived, it was much like this. This is a fairly tall plant. You're looking at 3.5, sometimes 4 foot tall on the bloom spikes here. They did a lot of work to this one when it came. There was originally just 3 colors, white, pink, and red. And this one is one that's actually has modeled versions to it too. But this is definitely one of those that's a fun one to have in the garden. It's kind of hard to find the wild and crazy version. Like this. This is the pretty wild and crazy version. This is the one that gets 4 foot tall. A lot of these, the breeders and the seed companies have actually worked on this and made this one shorter, so you can get one that's only like a foot tall. But I like this one. It gives a lot more structure to the garden, and it's really cool to see these flowers in a breeze like we've got going here, moving about. It's also a favorite of our local pollinators. But yeah, that's Gara, otherwise known as whirling butterfly. See ya.